Hello, in this video I'm going to show you my first asset pack for the Unreal Engine marketplace, which is called Modern Buildings. I will leave a link in the description in case you want to check it out. I will explain some of the main features of the project and how you can work with the assets to create cities in your own games. The goal with this project was to make a set of buildings that help you to create cities in a quick and easy way with a good performance, using as few textures as possible and having enough flexibility to achieve a lot of visual variation without becoming overwhelming. So here we are in Unreal Engine 5, and this is the main example map, which is a small city created using all the buildings included in the project. There are in total 40 buildings, all with unique shapes and designs, with which you can create really cool looking and interesting cities. The main feature of this project is that every building is a blueprint. So if I go ahead and select one building, for example this one, we can go to the details panel of that object, and under the default group you have all the parameters that you can modify to change the appearance of the building. So the first parameter is the body module copies. So by moving this slider you can control the height of the building. Each building is made of 3 modules: the base module, the body or middle module, which is being repeated vertically to change the height of the building, and the top module of the building. The next parameter that you can change is the UV layout selection. So if I move this slider, you can see that the architectural details or the style of the windows changes, and this is basically selecting one of 7 predefined UV layouts for each building. The next parameter is the floor height. So if I move this slider, you can see that the number of floors remains the same, but you are changing the height of the floor itself. The next parameter, which is called walls between windows switch, for this I'm going to get closer to this building, and you can see that this building has this brown color for these spaces between the windows. And if I move the slider, you can see that the brown color is now applied horizontally instead of vertically. So that is just a little detail that can add more variation to your buildings. Next we have the materials, and we have 2 materials: the main material, which changes the overall color scheme of your building, and the second material is the roof elements material, which uses a very simple base color texture for the objects in the rooftop. You can easily change the material. So let me open the content browser, and we have here all the available materials. You can also create your own materials, but right now I'm just going to apply one of the available materials, and you can see that it updates automatically and changes the overall colors and the appearance of the building. Now let me create some copies of this building so I can show you a little bit more what can be done. So I'm going to apply different materials to this building. Maybe put this one here, this one, maybe that one. Let's create another one, and let's put this material. And now I am going to play with the UV layout. Maybe change the height, maybe this change the height too, change the UV layout, change the floor height, make this shorter, like this. And this one, we already have that one, maybe like this. Maybe apply a more interesting material. Let's try this one. So what I wanted to show you here is that this system is really powerful. Using the same modules and the same building and applying different materials and different parameters, you can have a lot of variation. And if you multiply these for 40 buildings and for X number of materials, I hope you can imagine the power that you have with this system. In the next group in the details panel, we have these building specs, which it says are informational only and not editable. So if you try to change these parameters, you will see that they are only offering you information, and they are giving you the number of stories. This is simply the number of floors of the building, and you can also have the total height of the building and the total height of the building without roof elements. So for example, if we choose one of the other buildings that have an antenna, you can see that the total height of the building to the top part of the antenna is 159 meters, and the height without the roof elements and without the antenna is only 128 meters. So this is just something I thought it might be useful in case you want to have a building with a specific height. Well, that is there in case you need it. So to create new buildings, I'm just going to open the content browser and go to the buildings folder, and here you have all the buildings. Each building has its own folder, so I'm going to open one, and in this folder we have the blueprint for that building, which you can simply drag and drop into the scene. And we also have a modules folder, which contains all the modules that were used to create the building. And again, you can go to the parameters and start playing with the parameters until you get something that you like. Now, the most efficient way to work is to go to the buildings folder, and in the search bar you're gonna write BP, which stands for blueprint, and MB, which stands for modern building, and this way you will have access to all the buildings at the same time, so you can just start dragging and dropping buildings into your scene, and you can quickly start filling up your city and populating your city with buildings. And you can go, as always, to the parameters and start changing and play along and have fun. Next, I want to show you one of the highlights of the project, which is the texture technique used. Unlike other asset packs out there, in which you have dozens or hundreds of textures to achieve the complexity of something like this city, well, this project uses very few textures. So let me show you. Let's go to the textures folder, and this is it. All this complexity, all these types of buildings are being created with these few textures. So let me open this texture and I will show you what I mean. This texture is just a reference to show you all the styles that are being used, and they are organized within the same space. So this texture is not really used in the materials, it's just a reference, but instead all the materials are built with these three channel packed masks. Let me open one, and we have black and white masks stored in the RGB and alpha channels of the texture. So we have three masks. We have a normal map for all the buildings. You can see here the normal detail for all the windows. We have, for the objects in the rooftop, we have one basic base color texture. You can see it's very basic and flat colors. And we have an alpha for the roof elements, and that's it. So you can see it's very economic, and hopefully this will provide you with better performance when you are working with these buildings, compared maybe to other alternatives in which you have to deal with a lot of textures for a single environment. Now I'm going to talk about the materials. There are two types of materials. One is called complex and one is simple. I applied the same material to these three buildings so you can see them in action. When I open the material, this is the simple material, and here we can change the overall color of the windows. You can change the roughness, the metallic, and we can change also the floor slab, which is the sort of the concrete part that can be seen through the glass. You can change the value, the saturation, and the hue. You can really go crazy with these values. We can change the overall walls color, the color of the walls. You can change the color of the frames of the windows, but you have to really get close to see the change. And you can change the color of the roof floor, which is this color. So that's basically the simple material. So now let's see the complex material. I'm going to apply this one. I'm going to open the complex material, and it has the same parameters that the simple material, but it has a few more things. For example, let me put a different color in the windows. You have the same slab floor color, but you can also change the horizontal color, so to have more variation horizontally or more variation vertically. You can also change the hue and the saturation. You also have in the walls, you have more variation of colors. You can change the main color, and there's the secondary color. And you also have the parameter that controls the color of the walls between the windows. You also have the frames color and the roof floor color. So you can go really crazy with the color schemes, creating your own materials. One of my favorite things about these buildings is that you don't really need to use a bunch of materials like in this example. You can simply apply one single material and it will look good. So let me show you. I'm going to go to the outliner and I'm going to type BP_MB for modern building. I'm going to click here, then Ctrl A to choose all the buildings, all the blueprint buildings. Then I'm going to go to the folder materials, and I'm going to choose any material and apply it here. And the material will be applied to all the selected buildings. And you can see that it looks very similar, but it looks cool. I think, at least I think it looks really cool. And then you can just start choosing randomly some buildings to add a little bit of variation and choose one other material, and that will add a little bit of change, but the city will have an overall look and it will look consistent, and it looks cool. I think it looks cool. Let's try it with another material. I select again all the buildings and select another material. That looks really cool. Maybe try one more time with a dark material, maybe this one. Now you have a very dark city. Let's do another one. Maybe this one. So yeah, that's another option if you don't want to work with a bunch of different materials and you want to have something more consistent and with more visual unity. That's another option you can use. Also, if we go to the blueprints folder, you can see the included blueprints. This one, called Building Construction Basic, is the master blueprint that controls the construction and the creation of the buildings. And all the other buildings are child of this blueprint, of this master blueprint. So here we have all the nodes. All of them have comments to explain what they do. So you should be able to understand what's going on here, and you should be able to modify or change it if you need to. The next blueprint is this one. It says for merged actors, and this blueprint is meant to be used when you want to merge two or more buildings into one static mesh, but you want to preserve the functionality of selecting the UV layouts. So I will make another video in the future explaining how this functionality works. Now let's talk about collisions. For that, let me choose one of the buildings, go to the modules folder and open one of the modules. And I'm going to turn on the show simple collision, and you can see here that all the modules have a simple collision apply. And if for some reason you want the character to walk in this place, you would have to use a complex collision for that. But for the majority of cases, this type of collision should be enough. Now that we are here, let me show you also the UV list, and you can see here that we are using all the available UV channels. UV channel 0 is being used for light maps. If I select that, you can see here the light maps, and all the other channels from 1 to 7 are storing the different architectural styles. So if I jump from one UV channel to another, you can see the UV islands changing to apply the different styles. Next, I want to show you some of the other meshes that are included in the project. So if we go to the meshes various, we have a folder called roof elements, in which you have some of the roof elements used, and you can simply start dragging and dropping elements to the rooftop of your buildings in case you want something more complex. Maybe some water tanks, and yeah, that's there in case you want to add more stuff and make it more complex. The next folder is one scale refs, which contains 3 buildings from the real world. We have the Burj Khalifa, we have the Eiffel Tower, and we have the Empire State Building. These buildings are there just for scale reference, so they have light maps, but they don't have textures, so just use them as a reference for scale. Also, I want to show you some of the other maps included in the project. This is the main map, but we have also a secondary demo map in which we have some different examples of styles that you can achieve with the different buildings and different materials, so you can really see the flexibility of the project. We also have the overview map with all the other buildings. You can see here every building with its name, and you can use this level to just experiment with the buildings and decide which buildings work better for your project. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have some questions you can put them in the comments and I will try to answer them when I can. Bye.